You all, good evening. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm calling our regular meeting of our Town Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, December 5th, 2022 at 6:35 p.m. My name is Rob Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight are Paul Schatz, Kathy Hunter, Andrew Skolnick, Jeff Kennedy, and Chadi Nujim. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer, for all your support. And we're happy to be here in person. Nice to see all of you. Our agenda tonight has been posted and is available on the town website, as are all the materials in support of the public hearing that we're going to hold tonight. And that public hearing will be on the application for a 3-lot subdivision at 9 Manilla Avenue, brought by Anthony J. and Patricia Santagata. Then we have a bit of, we'll move into our regular business and work session on that application and a few other items that are listed in our agenda for tonight's meeting. So if the applicant could step forward, we're going to begin our public hearing for the 3-lot subdivision at 9 Manilla Avenue. And if the applicant, if you could introduce yourself. We'll wait till the chairs are all moved around. Introduce yourself, state your name for the record. Chris, do they have to sign in as well?
Yes, please.
Great.
Thank you. Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant, along here with...
Fred D'Amico, I'm the project engineer.
Thank you both. Do you have a presentation to make?
Yes, so this is a 3-lot subdivision in the D zone. And I have submitted, as part of the application, a request for a waiver of the open space, and which I will address. And in addition to that, I received a report from the Conservation Commission requesting a strip of open space. The first thing I would like to do is address the fact, and I think it will be reiterated today, that this subdivision complies with all your regulations at the preliminary meeting that was pointed out by your zoning enforcement officer. So in that vein, and I have presented 2 cases, which are seminal cases with regard to permitted uses under zoning regulations. One is Pansy Road, which deals with the subdivision and deals with whether or not this a commission can consider off-site traffic and the extent to which it actually cannot. And that case was cited with full authority in 2772 BPR, which was a site plan case. A site plan, of course, as you are aware, is also a matter of right, and that determined that by zoning of property, the commission determines that the infrastructure leading up to that property is appropriate. In this situation, we have the area of Manilla and Merritt, which is zoned for this zone, and it requires 4,000 square foot minimum size for the lots, and it requires certain setbacks. Our subdivision application, as you see, complies with all of those regulations. We are creating no new road, creating no new connection to any existing road, so we believe it complies, and as a matter of right, it should be applied. It should be approved. In addition to that, we have, with respect to this subdivision, which is a small piece of property totaling 13,500, I believe, square feet. I'm sorry, 13,500 square feet, I think total, or thereabouts. To take 10% of the open space would of course result in the elimination of a lot. As I mentioned last time, and I will mention again, having been the chairman, the past chairman, I should say, of the Housing Opportunities Commission, obviously, it is very important for Woodbridge to continue to approve various forms of alternative housing to expand the housing stock. Commissioners can obviously take into account what they experience in the real world, so to speak, and I think there is no dispute the fact that there is a tremendous housing shortage, which causes prices to go up and increases unaffordability. But open space is also a valuable item to consider. What is pointed out in my, and I will defer to the corrective letter that I received today from the chairman of the Conservation Commission, which was I had looked at the older regulations instead of the brand-new regulations, in this brand-new meaning 1993, regulations for the subdivisions open space. What I'd like to address about that is that the purpose of it, when you read both versions of it, is to preserve open space, but it's also to preserve natural beauty and to create for the people that buy into the subdivision, parks, recreations, and possibly do them within the area of the subdivision. When you're talking about a D zone, 4,000 square foot lots, it's obviously very difficult to be dedicating the part of the property that you're doing, especially for 3 lots of open space. So this parcel sits literally across South Bradley Road from a 7-acre town-owned parcel with playing fields and open space. So that purpose to provide for the residents that go in there to have open space, it already exists. If you took 10%, it would, and that's not what the Conservation Commission is asking, but if you took 10%, you would eliminate a lot, acting directly and detrimental to the need for further housing. And as pointed out last time, this is a subdivision. It's before you only because it's a subdivision of property. There are other independent lots which people just walk in and get a permit to build a house in this area on a 4,000 square foot lot. The other thing, and I did misquote the old regulation about open space no less than 1 acre, but the one thing I would like to point out, I think it's important for you to consider your regulations and what the regulation does say. The proposal is to take the 4,500 square foot lot and take a 5-foot strip along South Bradley Road. I'm making the assumption, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the area that I'm talking about. And it's the area where you come down Manilla, you hang a left onto South Bradley begins, and then you go in, and then South Bradley hangs a left and goes around this property. So this property, as you'll see from the plan, and you see on the plan, has actually, that lot on the end has 3 street fronts when you go, when you look at it. Although for time periods, that portion of the public road between Manilla and where South Bradley turns left has been closed off to prevent people from cutting through, but I think it's open at this present time. So as a result of that, first of all, it's easier to meet the setbacks when you have a situation that we have proposed. But the proposal is for a 5-foot strip of land, and it talks about putting in gardens or maybe a sidewalk and having access. Now, when you do that, you should look at the entire neighborhood, and the entire neighborhood of Manilla and Merritt has no sidewalks. The people in the neighborhood tend to walk in the street. They tend to play basketball in the street, like my grandson does on Merritt. And so there is no sidewalks. So the purpose is in the request that there be open space, which, by the way, my client could provide. We have with the 5-foot strip. You're going to have a 5-foot strip going from Manilla to South Bradley along the third lot, which will be the third lot. Now, the open space, according to your regulations, subsection 2I, I believe it is, says that the open space shall be provided in 5 different fashions. The first one of which is dedication of land to the town of Woodbridge. The second one is dedication to the Woodbridge Conservation Trust. The third is provision of conservation easement. The fourth is a provision of private open space held by homeowners. And the fifth is any other mechanism. So only the first one, or maybe the first two, would allow public access if you're talking about it as a sidewalk or an area. But once the open space is given, it would then become the responsibility of the town of Woodbridge to maintain. Not the homeowner, not the applicant. If you want the homeowner to have control over it, it's a conservation easement, so it's no longer going to have public access, because you don't have public access over a conservation easement. So while open space is a valuable thing to consider, in this case, it is not. Even with the suggestion of good points that are being made in the letter, it's just not. When you look at all the factors of this subdivision, where it's located, what it's around, the open space that is across Bradley Road, South Bradley Road from it, it just isn't worth it. Certainly, a much better approach would be to suggest that even in the A residential areas, that instead of 2-acre zoning, you go to 2-acre density, which is what a lot of towns are going to, in which the density is kept, but the houses are required to be clustered so that you can create more open space. This is not the case here. This is not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is an area of highly developed area with a few lots left across from a public park. So I believe that it is appropriate in this situation to waive the open space, with the understanding that certainly we can give the suggestion, but the maintenance of that property then falls on the city, the town, and I can foresee in that situation the Board of Selectmen refusing to receive the open space, because I think that the Public Works have enough to maintain rather than to maintain that. If there were a sidewalk pattern throughout the town, it would make, throughout the area, it would make a lot more sense. But it doesn't make any sense, and I don't think there's any plan to have a sidewalk plan down on Merritt and Manilla. With that, I will turn it over to Fred D'Amico to go over how this complies with your regulations.
Again, Fred D'Amico. Basically, it's a 3-lot subdivision. It was an old subdivision at one time that had 20-foot wide lots, and this is actually, it was a total of 6 lots, and it was divided up, and they're combined in such a manner so that instead of 20-foot wide lots, they become, 2 lots together become 40 feet, and the owner actually had part of another lot which turned into South Bradley Road, and a portion went to him. So this was really actually, I believe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, I think about 8.5 lots, something like that. But basically this is really a subdivision that's it's almost like kind of like a re-subdivision where you're just revising the lot lines to make the lots 40 feet wide, and to make sure that all 3 lots meet the existing zoning, which they do. So the lots do meet all the zoning. We do meet all the regulations, all the setbacks, and therefore, as the attorney stated, it does, because it meets all the regulations, all the zoning, it should not have a problem with being approved, with the exception of whether or not the waiver is or not granted for the open space.
Go over the parking and the drainage.
And the parking, the existing parking, the lots all have proposed parking. You can see that each lot has, 2 spaces in the in the building and 2 outside. And this existing one has 4 on the outside. The existing dwelling does not have any parking inside. It's an existing building without a garage. So all 3 lots would have 4 parking spaces, and they would all be constructed as duplexes. We also proposed for the new, any impervious area that's being added, which are the 2 houses on both sides, we're proposing galleys underneath the parking, so that these galleys, the roof drains would drain into the galleys to mitigate any increase in runoff. So therefore, there is no net increase in runoff from the subdivision. Other than that, we do have, there's sanitary sewer right in the street, so we don't need septic systems. The sanitary sewer's available with no issues. It's just gravity, would be gravity sewers. And I think that basically addresses everything, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
So, thank you both for your presentation. Commission members, do you have any questions on your mind?
I have a question for either one of you. The town park that's located right by, where is that on your map? Can you just point that out?
I believe it's
Right across.
I believe it's across the street from, this is South, Manilla's here, South Bradley Road comes like this, turns, and I believe it's in this area.
And up in this part, there's like a soccer
Yeah,
or
there's- I
something,
think
that's
there's
up in that
schools.
area?
It's West River, talking about West River
Yeah.
Field?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes.
It's, it has a swing sets and things like that.
So that's what's on the other side of South Bradley?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, now, the 3 highlighted areas are the 3 parcels that you folks are discussing, correct? When you turn onto Manilla, there's a foundation that's not completed and it's been sort of put in there. Is that one of these parcels or not?
No, that's a lot that's, I believe that's.
Where is that? Just to help me visualize it, because I know the
That's
area.
down here somewhere, because when you first.
Yeah.
Manila, I think one of these lots, they
Understood.
started construction on.
All right, so, and if you keep driving up again in the parcel in question, are there structures already on those 3?
There's a structure in the center lot.
Okay.
These 2 are empty. This has an existing dwelling.
Oh, okay. And are you gonna develop that or take it down and then
No,
build?
that's gonna be kept the way it is. It's
Okay.
gonna be remodeled, but
I drove through the area and I'm just trying to fit my, what I saw to the map, that's all. Okay, understood, thank you.
Other questions from commission members?
So I just don't understand, the dwelling that's there right now is going to stay, it's a townhouse?
It-
I think is it up down, huh? 2-family, up, down town.
And what's going to be constructed is going to be similar, visually similar?
what's gonna be constructed on either side would probably be a townhouses, a duplex.
Duplex, similar to what, the newer houses that were built on,
Litchfield?
no, that were built on, Merritt. If you're going down
Yeah.
Merritt, actually, it's the lot next to my son's house, where they took that, there were 2 lots, they ended up 2 lots, and they have 2, 4,000 square foot lots with, duplexes on them. Similar type design.
So everything is a rental, correct?
Well, the 2-family is owned by the applicant, and there's a rental, and the other 2 properties may very well be rentals, they could be owned, they could be sold to someone. It's, no decision is made on that yet. But I mean, it could be either one. Usually, when you have a 2-family, the rentals, or as the Italians have, the whole family lives up and down, so.
And so right now, and there could be 6 total families and a total of how much parking?
There's 2 for each unit.
Okay.
Two on-site, to comply, two on-site for each unit. The parking of the existing house is from South Bradley, accessed off of South Bradley with 4 outside spaces. The others are, I think, tandem spaces, garage and,
Off of Manila, yes.
yeah, off of Manila, there will be as there are in the other houses, the other duplexes, there's the tandem garage and, in front of the garage.
And where would overflow parking be?
Having been overflow parking, on Merritt, people tend to park in the street, people tend to park, wherever they can. I mean, when you know, it's, having been experienced it down there, it's what happens. But of course, again, going back to cases I presented, that whether or not there is or is not issue of parking, it's determined that the infrastructure is appropriate. The regulations call for 2 per unit, and we provide 2 per unit.
Are these 3-bedroom units?
Shadi, you have to get closer to the mic and speak up a little bit.
Are these 3-bedroom units?
I don't know if a decision's been made. They would probably be, given the size, they would probably be 2-bedroom units with that third, what we call flex room. You know, that's what is a usual design right now, is it, so it could possibly be, have a 3rd bedroom.
And I'm sorry, it's 2 parking spots per unit, so 4 per lot?
4 per lot, yes. Is
No.
what-
You said 2 inside in the garage and 2 out, so is it
Right.
2 spaces per
2 spaces per unit,
unit?
so 4 per.
Per lot.
What I said was, in the middle one, the 4 are outside in the back. In the other 2 newer ones, there's 1 garage, 1 in front, 1 garage, 1 in front.
And anything after that is on the street?
Correct.
And how is parking and traffic in that area today?
I could have let my son, you know, I've been down there, it could be difficult depending on how many people are parking, they have to park, but that's what, you know, people do down there. I mean, like I said, I go down there to my son's house quite often, and there are times when I have to park on the street. It's what is, you know, what you do.
Because we also have 2 more units being built in Merritt, right, or something like that, and then the discussion in January for another 14 or whatever it is more.
You need to speak closer to the mic. You don't have to speak into it, 'cause they can't pick it up.
Can you repeat it?
Yes. So we have 2 units that are being built on Merritt today, and then there's another subdivision coming to be discussed in January for another 14 or 12, whatever number of units as well.
So there is, in January, a subdivision application coming in front of us that's not part of this
Yep.
hearing. The other one you're referring to is probably an existing lot that's being
Yeah.
built on,
Yeah,
but
there's 2 that were built on Merritt and are occupied.
They're occupied, okay.
There is 2 that, I believe, as part of the other subdivision, are on Merritt, but farther down and being proposed, or that actually have been approved, I believe. What you're talking about is the other subdivision.
Yes.
And if you take the time to look at Pansy Road and, you know, which is really the seminal case on that, once you are now creating roadway, okay, the intersection of that roadway with the existing roadways creates a situation where traffic can be considered. Parking is basically, you look at the regulation, and if it's 2 per unit, that's it. Whether or not people
Understood.
park in the street or not, you've already made the determination that the infrastructure in that area, which includes parking, is available, is suitable for a unit that has 2 units, 2 off-site parking spaces. Traffic is another issue, But in traffic, for us, we're not impacting it at all. So there's no, as Pansy Road says, there's no consideration for that. When you are creating roadway, that's certainly something that the commission, any commission can consider, because you're creating now further roadways, and you can discuss of how it interacts. Usually, in that situation, if necessary, applicants bring in traffic engineers. Obviously, we don't have the need, to do that for existing property.
Other questions, or I might jump in with a few of my own?
Please.
A quick question. I too took a drive down there this weekend. I have a question about South Bradley Road and the gate that when I was there I saw was closed. And I'm just curious when it opens, why it's closed, or is that a town-controlled decision if you know?
I believe it's a town-controlled gate. Every time I've been down there, the gate's been closed.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know why they have it closed. I don't know why they want to control the traffic so that they don't seem to want the traffic to go through there. But I'm not quite sure
I
why.
think I can address it a little bit. I'm not sure. Some of it's hearsay, some of it's the reason. I do know that, for instance, I know the gate was open, of course, when they did the Merritt Street Bridge. It had to be open so people could go out. My understanding through hearsay is at those appropriate times in the morning, when Litchfield Turnpike has a tendency to be backed up, if you wanted to, you could hang a left. If you thought you could do it faster, you could hang a left on Bradley Road, hang a right on South Bradley, zip around the park, come out onto Manilla, hang a right on Manilla, go around the corner, hang a right on Merritt, and be at the light that puts you a little closer. Now, I'm assuming if somebody ran whatever they do, tests on drugs and everything for the medical community, and you ran, how many times, how many people would actually beat it? It's probably 6 of one, half dozen of another. But I understand that was the reason why, and they keep it. I don't know how often they open it. I have no idea.
Generally, it's locked,
Yeah.
and they only open it in emergency cases and the case where the Merritt Avenue Bridge was being rebuilt, it was open, but it's typically closed and locked.
I want to follow up on, and I thank you for responding to the letter from our chair of our Conservation Commission. And I understand in essence they're asking for a single block worth of sidewalk or otherwise sort of public, access along that part of South Bradley Road from Manilla towards
Right.
the park. I've also looked at it, that sidewalk would end, and you'd have to cross the Bradley Road street there to then get to the park and playground. To me, and Jeff, to your sort of question, that currently with the gate up, that sort of elbow turn in South Bradley Road kind of acts like a little dead end and looks like parking area for the playgrounds that are right over there. So in essence, they're just asking for, they weren't actually specific of whether a paved sidewalk or one up, but some sort of ability for people to walk not in the street towards that. Is that my correct understanding of
That's the understanding I have. But if it's to be under your open space provision, then that 5 foot has to be deeded in fee to the town or to the Conservation Trust. Because if it's to be viewed as a walkway of some sort, it can't be a conservation easement, because conservation easements do not allow public access. So it would have to be either one or two, in the 5 choices. And therefore, and it really preferably have to be one. I don't know if the Conservation Trust would want to incur the insurance requirements of a public access. I have sat on the other side of the table as a town attorney for another town, and oftentimes, and I've advocated in a lot of my proposals for always advocate for what I call connectivity open space. I've spoken out at seminars against what I refer to as measles open space, which is a term I have to take credit for coining, is that if you, when they put the 10% in, and subdivisions started being required to have 10% of land, if you lit them up in red and you flew over them in a helicopter in many towns, it would look like the town had measles, with all these little red dots that didn't connect with each other and serve no useful purpose. A lot of towns have grown out of that. I think one of the most effective is Shelton, where they make an effort to connect all the trails and everything like that. And Woodbridge has done that, you know, in looking at the trails. So little spots of open space don't go anywhere. But the biggest problem I saw as the town attorney was if you were deeding it in fee to the town, not conservation, if you were deeding it in fee to the town, then it was town property. Which means if somebody was on there for some reason, if it was public, you know, if it had public access, the town was responsible in certain situations. So actually, my client has no problem with the 5 foot. The 5 foot fits. It makes the lot, that lot on the end had a little bit more space, but I just don't see the purpose of it. The people that are walking, my grandson, who goes over, walks from Merritt, walks around, walks over to the, walks down the little you go right by the gate doesn't block pedestrians, and he goes onto the field. And he used to, that's where he would do his hitting practice. Now he'll be doing it at Amity's Field, so he won't have to go over there as much. So he walks around and goes that way. If there were a sidewalk pattern or a sidewalk plan in the area, then I can understand the reasoning for it. But I think the ability just to walk those 100 feet, 30 plus yards, just to go from one road to the other road, I don't just don't see the benefit of it, but the town then has to maintain it.
So I understand the former, how this one little bit of sidewalk in a in a area that doesn't have sidewalks may seem out of place. I do wonder whether under those 5 options under our section I 1 through 5, whether you could theoretically provide a conservation easement with full public access, where the 5 foot would be entirely the easement that also would entirely have public access, like we had our 356 Rimmon case where we did have a larger block of open space and allowed for public access to connect a trail from one parcel to the other. Could you envision a 5 foot wide, 100 foot long, full easement that is fully overlaid by, and people can access the full thing?
No, because you're putting, I can't envision it, because you're putting a burden now of liability on the property owner. So if someone's walking down there and they trip over whatever, whether or not they're successful or not, they're going to sue the property owner. They're not going to sue the town. So I would assume if that were to happen, my advice to the client would be, or my advice would be the town signs an indemnity that if anything happens on it, if the public, I just don't, I understand the reasoning behind it. Just, open space is great, not in every situation. Like I said, in a 20 lot subdivision where you could have X number of lots, you're better off clustering the lots and creating better open space. That's what the modern view of open space is. It's to create, protect forested areas and ridge lines and large areas like that. In this situation, this just happens to be a 4,000 square foot zone. The issue of open space is really here, just the purpose behind it in your general preamble really doesn't fit, is the bottom line. So if you're then going to say we want a 10-foot strip, yes, my client can give a 10-foot strip to the town as open space. And the town can not restrict it open space, or give it to the town for use as a public sidewalk. The town could take it for a public sidewalk by eminent domain if it wanted to. Would he be willing to give it to the town?
Does
That's what we're talking about.
the town want this space?
I mean, that seems to be the question all the time, and that's why I'm always confused with these subdivisions. You know, is there a vetting process to determine whether or not the town wants to take a responsibility for a piece of property that they you know, take and have to maintain and have responsibility over? So I'm just wondering if there could be a better vetting process when there are these subdivisions, to see whether or not, you know, the town does in fact want this piece of property.
Let me point something out to you that's happening right now in another town. I'm doing this with all the land use I do, this is probably the third subdivision I've done in the last decade, you know, because there's just not that many subdivisions coming along. But there was a proposal for open space. And there was a small area that was connectivity to a land trust open space. And the proposal was to give this large block of area of open space. The town's position, they said, yeah, that's fine. We want this tiny little area of open space connected to the land trust. The rest of it, we want conservation easement. So that was more of a situation of preservation. You know, that was the whole point of it. And the town did not want it in fee. You know what I mean? They prefer it to be conservation easement. And then what they do is, in those situations, they have these placards that they put around it to prevent people from encroaching into the conservation easement area. But if the purpose is preservation, you know what I mean? And they certainly did not want public access, because public access means the public access can get closer to the homes. That's not the situation here. You know what I mean? They wanted it. So when a situation is where you choose open space and the Board of Selectmen doesn't want it, often it ends off being conservation easement, open space instead of public access open space, or public ownership open space.
What purpose would a conservation easement serve in this instance?
I have no reason, I have no idea at all. I mean, to keep it, a conservation easement, the purpose of a conservation easement is well stated in the regulation. It's to keep the property in its natural state. It's natural state. This isn't the case. I mean, the suggestion is to do plantings or to do other things, or to do pollinator type plants. You know, I just guess that's good. Everybody's welcome to come into my pollinator garden in the back of my house, where I have a bunch of pollinator type plants, but I just don't see the benefit of it. I mean, it has a benefit for wanted people to be able to traverse it as a public sidewalk, I suppose, but I don't, really, it doesn't connect up.
At present, with the gate closed, there is room on either side of the pylons for the gate for pedestrians to pass?
Walk around there.
Quick question back on the two cases. I think you explained the Pansy Road case as standing, according to you, for the proposition that those off-site traffic conditions in situations like this, where you're not creating a new road as part of the subdivision, should not be part of our purview. Could you may have gone quickly, what was the proposition that
Well,
the 227 or 72?
Pansy Road is a 2007 case. It was cited with approval in
The BPR case?
the BCR case, which was a very controversial case involving a site plan, not a subdivision, but it's also a matter of right, and it went on for years involving a propane gas setup. And the determination there was that the street system around it was not sufficient to handle this. And the appellate court, and I want to go into the appellate court rule, no, you made a determination that the infrastructure is sufficient when you zoned it for a site plan in that zone. Made the site plan use in that zone. And they cited Pansy Road. Subdivisions and site plans as permitted uses, as it says in there, is that, if it complies with all the requirements in the zoning, there is very little discretion left. And basically what both of them say. But the 21 case even was, it cited Pansy Road, but it also emphasized the issue. that you're facing.
Thank you. Other questions from commission members? Alrighty. Remember, we don't get to ask them more questions once we go through the public comment process, so. Okay. Thank you both for the presentation.
You're welcome.
So now we're going to move to the public comment portion of our hearing on 9 Manilla Avenue. The purpose of our public hearing is to listen to comments from the public. Each member of the public who wishes to speak will have up to 3 minutes to make their brief statements into the record. Our members of the TPZ and the applicants will not be answering any questions that you may raise. Your public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will be part of the public record for the TPZ to consider when it's reviewing this application for a subdivision. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of this application is prohibited. I ask that members of the public keep their comments brief and focused on the proposed subdivision application and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can know all the concerns from you and your neighbors might have. So I have my timer with me. Do I have any members of the public who would like to come up and speak? Yes, please. Come on up if you could, and sign in if you could, and move the microphone near you. And once you're all settled, I'll start your 3-minute timer, but I'll give you time to introduce yourself. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record, and then I'll let you.
Joseph Tontini, I live at 6 Manilla Avenue, Woodbridge.
Thank you.
I've provided a written document as well, so I'm not going to go over all that. I appreciate it if you would review it. I also included some pictures, so I didn't know how many people actually got down there. And I know the town submitted the public notice to the newspaper and was properly printed. However, the town's website lists the date of this meeting for 11/7, not 12/5. I have told the neighbors of the hearing and told them to get the specifics off the Woodbridge website, but today I noticed that it still lists the date of the hearing as 11/7, not 12/5. I believe this is an error, but, and if it's in a different place on the website, I just don't know where it is.
It's on the agenda, which is posted.
The agenda's there, but it's listed for 11/7, not, maybe it was an error in not replacing the head, top head? The head?
It's the agenda.
Okay, but that's not available on the website, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, then I stand corrected. What I saw was on there for 11/7. And I also checked with Christine earlier last Friday to see if the traffic impact study report submitted by Benish had been independently reviewed yet, and that's not going to happen until before the next hearing.
Let me just be very clear. That traffic study, when you came in, is not for this application.
I understand that. All I'm saying is that that was information that I thought would be important to this as well, simply because the traffic on our street is unbelievable. And Merritt is actually worse than Manilla. Your comments about the gate, that gate's never open, as Christine said, unless there's some kind of an emergency. But one of the reasons for that gate is that people go speeding through there, and we're worried about the kids in the neighborhood. Another issue is the 18-wheelers from the park, the industrial park, would try to go through there. they would get stuck because the streets are very sharp turns, and there's absolutely no place for an 18-wheeler going down that road. Okay, and I was just hoping that this public hearing would be able to include, because I do know that people that looked on the website, and apparently they thought that it was already passed. But if this is on there, I wasn't able to find it. Okay, I guess that's...
If you have some closing thoughts,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Regarding this subdivision request, I noticed that due to the limited space available, that the existing driveway for 9 Manilla Avenue was needed to get to the correct lot size. Okay? Instead of the driveway that's currently there, 4 outdoor parking spaces go onto South Bradley side. One of the other neighbors also has their parking for some of their residents on the South Bradley side. I was just curious, was any consideration given to putting the garages for 7 and 11 Manilla on the South Bradley side, the opposite side, to ease the congestion of traffic and parking? It makes sense to me. I don't know if it was considered and it's too costly. I don't know what that issue is. But if you put all the parking for the 12 vehicles, including the garages, on the South Bradley side, then you get on Manilla a stretch of land that is, other people can park there if they had to. But the street is too narrow. The kids going down on their bikes. In fact, I believe where the house is right now, they have a yellow statue of a thing that they put out near the road to warn drivers that there's kids in the area. It's way too complicated. And Merritt is far worse with the congestion of the parking. I only offer that up as a possibility. Again, it may have already been considered, but the traffic concerns and the light at Merritt, this would alleviate that. The people would go out South Bradley, out to the other. And we're not talking about a lot. We're talking about 12 more people. 2 or 3 bedroom duplexes or whatever. I'm sure there's studies that will prove me wrong, but I've got 4 cars in my driveway for 2 people. Okay, I don't park on the street because I don't want to get. I want it for the kids that are going up and down. They're coming home from school. This is crazy. And unfortunately, the people at the far end of Manilla, and I don't know some of these people, but they see a 100-yard stretch of road, and whether they're going either way, they gun it. There's a 25-mile-an-hour zone sign in front of my house. That is the only one that exists in the entire Manilla, Miles, and Merritt, as well as the industrial park. And I've asked officers, what's the speed limit here? I've gotten 2 different answers.
Can I ask you to wrap up?
I'm done.
Oh. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me extended time.
Do we have other members of the public who would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, I think we're at that point where we need a motion to close our public hearing for the Santa Gata application for the 3-lot subdivision at 9 Manilla Avenue.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing the public hearings?
I have a question, Rob.
Oh, discussion. Thank you.
Chris, I didn't, it's hard on my phone, I was trying to get on my computer and look. Regarding that, the comment made about the date of the hearing being past, not current.
On the agenda, the only legal required notice is the notice that's in the newspaper. And then there was notice that was sent to all the abutters. I don't I can't bring it up here. I don't know what
So
he's talking
anyone who
about.
abutted the property was given notice that the hearing was tonight?
Yes, they were
Okay.
all mailed a notice.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the motion to close? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we close the public hearing. So thank you for having this public hearing. Thank the commission for being good listeners and for your questions. Look forward to our deliberations in the work session. I want to thank the applicants for their informative presentation throughout this process, and thank the public for their participation and their both orally and for their written submissions, which will be part of the record we use when we deliberate on this application. Alrighty. So Chris, there's no new business, right?
Correct.
So we can move to our work session, and
I don't know, because you just got this long submission this evening, I don't know if you want to take a recess before you go into discussion on this, just to have an opportunity to actually read it. Because while you were listening to the other presentations, I don't think you could do justice to both and do this at the same time.
yeah, I think folks would appreciate that, a
Yeah.
10-minute recess.
Sure.
So we'll go for a 10-minute recess before we begin our work session. Thank you, Chris. Do you need a moment? So,
No.
you good? All right, so I'll call us back into session, into order. We are in our work session, and the item before us is the 9 Manilla Avenue subdivision application. So I'll ask if there are thoughts or reactions on the application from our TPC members.
Can we,
You need to get closer to the mic, sorry.
I remembered this time, I started to. Can we, I don't know if the reject is the right word, but reject the whole conservation part of it? Like that 5-foot space to me is, I think, for lack of a better word, useless for the town.
You need
Yeah.
to speak up.
Yeah.
The 5-foot space, I think, is useless for the town. Is there a way to just, again, I don't know if reject is the right word, reject the conservation part of it?
What's in front of us is a request from the applicant to waive the 10% open space requirement. That 5-foot by 100-foot proposal was from the Conservation Commission as an idea to, though it wouldn't be 10% of the parcel, but to offer something. So it's not rejecting that proposal. The thing in front of us is approving their request to waive the normal 10%. Andrew, I jumped on top
No,
of you.
that's okay. Also, in response to your question, it's not a requirement of open space. The commission may require a tract of land to be subdivided, shall reserve open spaces. So it's discretionary on the commission's part.
And when something like this comes in front of TPZ, where there's land that's going to be given to the town, is there a process that confirms that by the time it shows up here where a piece of property is going to be given to the town, that the town has accepted that property?
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe there is a formal process. Oftentimes applicants present their open space proposals to either the town or the Woodbridge Land Trust. Let me step back. We don't get very many subdivision applications lately, and in the ones that we have, which I'm only speaking on our recent experience with the Rimmon Road property, they did outreach, I believe, to the town and/or they did outreach to the Conservation Commission, the town, and the Land Trust, and figured out who might be interested in either having the property or receiving the conservation easement. That usually doesn't, Chris, come to us. We don't tend to get involved in those
You don't
discussions.
get involved in the mechanism of how it goes and where it goes. So you've got the Conservation Commission, which part of their job is to have, an inventory of the open space and then an inventory of what's out there that they might want to consider for open space. And so, one of the things that the commission has looked at in the past is greenways and, looking to connect greenways. Other options that some planning commissions use when you don't have the ability to actually have something that's good enough for open space in a subdivision, some towns have what they call fee in lieu of. So instead of getting open space, they get some funds towards the purchase of open space somewhere else in town that might make a difference in creating whatever it is that, is out there that might be needed. So,
That's not something that we have. the
but we
option to
don't
do.
have
No.
that, and as
Not
Bob
that,
said,
so no one gets any good
we
idea.
haven't had
ideas.
as evidenced by, you're all looking at me saying subdivision regs, we haven't had a subdivision in a long time. So it's, it's a driver of the fact that there isn't that much land left in town to develop as a subdivision. So, it's out there. Truthfully, it's the applicant's obligation, in a sense, to either request a waiver or propose open space and go to the Conservation Commission as appropriate to say, hey, what do you think of this idea? And then they can look at their list of what they have for potential parcels where they've kind of rated them sometimes as what's, a higher priority, something that they want, and then they go from there. At this stage of the game, to institute something about fee in lieu of, I don't know that it would do much, because I don't know how many more subdivisions you're gonna see. I don't know if that's an answer.
Thank you.
But Johnny, I'm glad you sort of brought up, to me, that is one of the sort of key questions,
Yeah.
about this open space waiver, other reactions? Johnny, you seem to be in favor of, this strip doesn't make sense.
I concur in that notion.
I concur as well. I mean, there isn't any, just to confirm, there's no plans for sidewalks in that area.
Not at the, there are several other entities within town that are working on different things, but in terms of your town plan, you didn't identify anything there. I am not aware of any grants at the moment that are proposing to do anything. The big block of sidewalks was the Lucy, Amity, Bradley, and Litchfield to create a walkable block there, so.
And I did take a drive down there, and I would think if there was a sidewalk, it would be like across the street from that Bradley Road area, so you would be going directly into the park without crossing the street, not on the applicant's side.
I mean, in this particular area, the lots are so small because of that old subdivision that created the original size. And the setbacks accordingly are small, but there really isn't, a place to really put a sidewalk that's not gonna crimp into where the cars drive. And
Yeah, I mean, with that, I would, vote to, approve the request of the applicant for a waiver of 10% of the subdivision regulations.
Other reactions?
It would be nice to have a sidewalk there, even one. When you drive around, it is very tight, small area. The neighborhood would probably benefit from it. But at the same time, it is a tight neighborhood where it is a higher density area, and people do use the streets for different reasons, and they walk around. In the ideal world, I'd love to have a sidewalk right there, but I think that could be done at another time, and I don't need to have it now.
Chris, in your time here, how many times has there been a requested waiver of open space?
I don't have a number, but it's happened. And it's typically been with smaller subdivisions such as this. And in larger subdivisions, like you had the one that was on Beecher Road, which did Lois Drive and Marion Road, then you had a whole, you had big blocks that protected some wetlands that were in there, and then you had a trail corridor that goes all the way from Pease Road through the subdivision, and then across Beecher and into the parcel that the town owns the Fitzgerald piece. So it made it made a greenway connection in there. It really did something. So that's what more than often they were trying to do. For instance, down on Peck Road, down close to where Jeff lives, that subdivision doesn't have that trail system there, but because the town owns the Elderslie parcel to the north, they added in open space that connected with that to the rear of that, so it made an even bigger corridor in there, in the conservation corridor. So those were the kind, those were the more meeting kind of things. And the same thing happened down on Elderslie, where at the base of Elderslie, the cul-de-sac, you have that large detention basin and there's open space in there. So that's what you got.
Thank you, Chris. Any thoughts on the application itself, and our public comment and photos?
I do think it would be helpful for the commission to keep in mind that that is an area where there's quite a bit of development going in, and we should keep a close eye on the amount of traffic and development going in there. It is a high-density area, but at the same time, it's getting very high density. We have another pending application for further comment at another time, but to your point, there is a lot of growth in that area. We should just be keeping in mind of what that's like.
I don't disagree in principle, but also keep in mind that the case law is clear that we can't consider traffic impact with an otherwise conforming lot.
Understood, and thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
No, and I think there's, the other thing that it comes up quite a bit is parking, which is, street parking, which is also, our regulations concern the amount of parking spaces for the lots and the lot sizes, and this application meets all of those requirements. Street parking is a matter for the police commission, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there's a way for us to communicate over to that police commission, that that's something that they may want to take up and sort of thinking about improving our, because I've been down there as well, there's, as far as I can tell, no rules on parking on sides of streets, on which side you can park on, no parking durations. There's other communities use a community parking tag or hang tag that you get for the specific ability to park in a place. That's just not under our purview, but it is something that I think the police commission, if it is under their purview, should be thinking about.
But is safety under our purview?
And the safety is in the context of the application in front of us, so we are more narrowly focused on this three.
The lot.
This lot, the division into three of this lot. If there were safety concerns around that, I don't see any that jump out to me.
So, for instance, on Hazel Terrace, there were residents who lived there who approached the police commission about having no parking signs on one side of the road. So it's truly something that the police commission can take up, and then they make a decision. So if you wanted to forward something to them, just saying you've had this application and given public testimony that you would encourage them to go to the area and look at it and see if they could develop some sort of parking plan.
And would they also consider like this, a couple more speed limit signs? Would that be for them?
You can ask them to go down and consider, traffic safety in the area and include, speed as well as parking, on-street parking.
So the decisions we make in here could worsen their responsibility, right? So if we authorize.
You have two different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
They play in the road, we don't.
Because the more subdivisions we approve down there, the higher the density gets in terms of buildings, in terms of people, in terms of cars, which makes it worse for the people that play in the streets.
But it is the police commission, and I do like the idea of actually sending a letter or a communication to them that for this and seeing what's also coming in our direction, that this is something they should get out in front of as the police commission, where that's their jurisdiction.
So for instance, on Landon, That was being used quite often as a cut-through. You know, people would want to skirt around Lucy, so they'd go through Landon and go tearing through Landon. And if you go through Landon now, there are, I don't know if they're humps or bumps,
Yeah, they're
whichever
speed
ones they
bumps,
are,
Speed humps.
but, you know, you don't want to go tearing through their.
No, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
So any further discussion on the application?
Move to approve the application.
And waive the 10%
Yeah.
open space requirement. Move, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the application? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Chadi, an abstention?
Yeah. Not sure. Does it cause a difficulty
No,
with
just want to be clear for the record.
abstain?
Thank you. So next up is, Chris, do you want to look at our regular meeting dates? That was next, I think, on the agenda.
Yeah, we need to get those in.
So all of our commission members have in front of them the one-pager that shows the January 2023 to January 2024 draft meeting schedule with a few notes highlighted in red on questions about, let's start with March 6th. Purim. Paul, any strong feelings about having a meeting on Purim?
I'm gonna plane to Israel that night, so clearly not.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings. Yeah,
I
it's-
defer to you guys, because I honestly don't know.
No, it's
Did
fine.
you want it to bring Hamantashen, or what were you suggesting?
I
No,
I just want to make
All
sure
come in costume?
I'm not
we
doing something wrong.
totally appreciate the
Could be a costume night for a PPP meeting.
that's traditional on Purim is to dress up in costumes and drink heavily. So I don't know if that part.
Then we
Okay.
should definitely have a
I
meeting
mean,
on it.
everybody would come in costume here and drink heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that March 6th date is fine. I think the other question, July 4th is a Tuesday.
That day, I think we should change.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think we wouldn't hit a quorum.
Yeah. So what appropriate the
So,
following
you
week?
following-
have I mean, you could go to the 5th, which is the Wednesday. The following, Monday, which if you just pulled it to there, could be a ZBA meeting, in which case I have to play Solomon and divide myself. But they don't always have a meeting, so.
Could we set that date and then change it as we get closer if they need to meet?
If you change it, it becomes a special meeting, and then whatever the agenda is the agenda. You can't add anything to it. So that's the purpose of this schedule of regular meetings.
Yeah.
I'd say let's set it for the, for the 5th.
And then you're conflicting with the
With
housing
housing.
committee, but
Right.
Let's set it for the 6th.
So it'd be a
that would be a
Thursday, the 6th. Does that sound?
Paul, are
reasonable?
you away that whole week already? You know for sure you're away that week? Or
I just look. Why would he say that?
because just to try to get a quorum.
Did
Because
you
I
hack
think
my calendar like somebody else?
I
did
think
my
I'm going to be
emails?
away that whole week, so that way we
Where are
can.
you going? Let's have a discussion.
Okay, Amsterdam.
Oh, I'm in.
This is okay.
I'm in. Count me in for that trip.
All right, all right.
Thursday, the 6th.
Thursday the 6th, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. All the other dates look fine. Great. Do we need a motion to approve this?
Yeah, a motion would be nice.
I'll move to approve the dates as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Chris. Apologies. So next up is our zoning regulation cleanup. Were we just supposed to report our progress on our review?
Yeah, I think you were
And
supposed to report your progress.
folks should hopefully, it looks like I see some sort of dog-eared copies here that folks are
I did
making
that.
their way
try.
through.
I did that intentionally.
Yeah, you just,
Put it in the briefcase, it looks really good when it comes out like that.
I do have one thing that I wanted to mention to you. In the regulations, you do have, and this kind of dovetails with housing opportunity and whatnot. One of the things that you have in the regulations is a minimum square footage of a house. And I did have somebody call last week, and they were asking about building a house that was not 1,200 square feet in area. So I didn't know if while you're doing this, if you wanted to look at that, because, you know, there may be people who want to build something smaller, but our regulations require, I mean, they could go and get a variance from the zoning board of appeals, but I don't know what their hardship would be. But I don't know that, I mean, it's your choice, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention, given the idea of creating housing opportunity, if this is something that would be another small thing that we could do that might free up the opportunities for some people to build something.
so Chris, I guess I think that would be an interesting thing to take up, and I think you're right to sort of flag it as, you know, aligned with improving housing opportunity. But is it better to do it in this, making sure the thing that has been cleaned up, corrected, and reorganized is what it is, versus the housing committee has already, in their report,
Yeah.
been reporting out to us, here are some things that they're find of interest. Is it better to do that in, here's a package of housing?
It may fit
approvals?
better into a package, but it was something I didn't want to forget, 'cause-
Well, no, and is that applicant interested in seeking a change of our zoning rules?
I
Is that,
explained to them what the change in the zoning rules, and most people are kind of a little intimidated by that one.
yeah, sure, okay.
Not that,
Tell them to talk to the housing committee.
well, I told them I would mention it to the housing committee, but you guys are meeting before the housing committee, so you'll hear it again.
Okay. So I think that folks should continue to review the regulations. Do we have a homework due date? Teacher?
Your January meeting could get quite full, you know, if you have people who are coming. We have engaged a traffic consultant to do the traffic study. So I don't know how much you're gonna have on your plate that night.
Will our traffic study be done by that date?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in
so.
just a minute.
I mean, we can put it on the
I
agenda for
probably
that
should have done that
evening.
first.
And then if you,
I
you
skipped
know,
it
if,
purpose.
No, I didn't, I
if you
apologize.
feel fresh enough, then you can discuss it, and if you're really, you know, it's getting late and you're not feeling fresh enough to discuss it, we can push it to either a special meeting after that. I mean, there's no way I would think scheduling a special meeting in December, it just doesn't, it's
No.
not practical.
So let's aim for, and I apologize, I did skip the 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue, I'll come back to it, but to close this thought out, let's aim for the January meeting to have our homework done, recognizing when January comes, we may have a long public hearing and not want to extend our evening any further. Well, though, will we be noticing that as a public hearing, though? Or is that just for us to come together and talk about, we've all done
It's
the
just for
review?
you to discuss what it is, because then after you decide what you wanted, you know,
Thank you.
whatever changes.
Then we need a public
Then we
hearing.
have to do the public hearing, I gotta ship it off to the council of governments, the whole 9 yards.
Gotcha, so that is come with your markups, your dog-eared copies, your notes of saying this still doesn't make sense, or this seems to be an error, or this seems, you know, out of place, and to that January meeting. If we have work session time to talk about it, we will do it then, and if not, we may find another time. Back to, and I apologize for skipping over 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. My question, I guess, Chris, was any updates on retaining our consultants, our own consultants to review the traffic study, et cetera?
We're gonna have V&N, who did the review of, the Toll Brothers, have said that they can get their review done in time for the January 3rd meeting. So they'll be reviewing it, and, so we haven't sent it off to the council of, to Jim Preedy. He did a very thorough review on behalf of Wetlands Commission in terms of drainage and all that, so I'm not sure, you're welcome to have him also look at it, but I don't know specifically what you would be having him look at.
And just so I'm clear, we all now have a hard copy, for those of us who are here, of the applicant's traffic study
Correct.
for us to look at.
And are we allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, we're in work session.
The traffic study people we've chosen, we've used before.
We use them for toll.
Okay. And that was a favorable assessment of their performance.
Nobody said
Yes.
they didn't like it.
No, yeah, no, they were.
I mean, the
they're
goal
good.
is to have an independent consultant review, doing a peer review, so that when you go to make a decision, if there's only one expert and you don't jive with that expert and they go to court, the judge is gonna rule that that expert opinion trumps your personal opinion.
Understood.
But if you have two experts, you get to pick. So, and it may be that your expert says, yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah, and they were helpful in the Toll Brothers process. Anything else that we should be doing in preparation for our January hearing?
No, I think you've all got plans. We can ask there is an open space proposal in that, so I don't know, Conservation met special meeting. They probably have another meeting this month, so I'll email the chair and ask them if they can have their comments or have consolidated with the applicant what they're proposing.
New Haven is part of that parcel, like if you look in the traffic thing. Is there any interaction between New Haven and us when that happens? Like the
It's
parcel
the
land,
council of- It's the
It
council of
gets
governments.
referred.
that's the council of governments, okay.
So, and when you look at it, there's the Merritt Parkway.
Yes.
So it's basically the Merritt Parkway, in a sense. But the bridge is there, and so there's a walkway. The West River Water Coalition has been working on a trail system that comes up the West River, and they're looking to connect it all the way up the West River.
Okay.
So they have parts of it down in New Haven, along, where the West River comes through Valley
Yeah.
Street and then down in there. So conceivably, that might be what they're looking for.
And that might be wrapped into the proposed open space. So I
Right.
think to the extent the open space or the Conservation Commission could weigh in on the
Yeah.
discussions or let us know, which I think there have been at least one
There have been
letter.
discussions, there were discussions when it was before wetlands. It started then just because they wanted to make sure that what they were looking at in terms of lot size and all that wasn't gonna change much. If open space was something that was really gonna be whatever. So we'll see.
Okay.
And then there may be, comments from the public on what's proposed too.
There likely will be.
Yeah.
Anything else on the upcoming 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue?
I have some questions, and I think it goes back to some comments from prior meetings. And it's understanding how we work with the rest of the town when it comes to housing opportunities, because there's a housing shortage, and also the affordable housing requirements that the state mandates for each town. How do we play in that?
So this
Play with those
application
requirements.
that's
Hang on one
before
second.
you.
I'm gonna excuse myself. That's the
Oh,
matter
okay.
that I have a conflict
Okay.
with. So, good night.
Well, don't
Okay.
go away.
Well, we're toward the end anyway, right?
You want to give us your, can we table that one?
I don't have,
Absolutely.
I don't have a
Any
report.
Scrog report?
I don't have a report. I didn't bring it. I will give a double report the next time.
How is the pizza?
There is a meeting, this Thursday too, so definitely, it'll be fresh in my mind.
And this Thursday is when you're gonna discuss this?
Yes, I'll have to, leave the room for that too. But they have pizza.
Oh, okay. So this particular application is coming in as a subdivision. It is not coming in as an opportunity housing application. So as such, there is no ability for you can ask if they want to provide some open or affordable housing, but there's no lever for you to say that they have to, because it's just a subdivision. They're, if they're coming in and the lots are conforming with the lot size similar to the one you looked at before and all that other good stuff, that's what's before you. If they had come in as an opportunity housing application, then there's a requirement in that to have, a percentage of affordable housing. But in this particular case, the way the application is before you, it's not something that you can mandate to them. You can ask. I already did. But said it would be nice if we saw some, but I don't think we
Yeah,
have.
and who is it? TPZ that would be asking, and I don't want to say pushing, but asking more than once, let's say, or is it the Board of Selectmen? Is it some other
The
commission?
selectmen have nothing to do with this. The decision to create a subdivision under state statute lies solely with you and what your regulations say. And the way your regulations are written, it doesn't require that there be any. You can say, the town is looking to have opportunity housing. It would be nice if you considered that, but you can't mandate
Yeah,
it.
understood.
Chris, when I look at the homepage and it says what the function of the planning and what the function of the zoning part of this commission is, I don't know. I don't think it empowers us in that front. I'm not a lawyer. I didn't play it on TV, but I mean the zoning part was the goal of preserving the character and integrity of the community.
The zoning establishes what the lot size is, what the dimensions are, and what the uses are.
That's just under planning. Sorry, that's under planning. It says.
No, that's zoning.
I'm just
Planning.
reading what it says on our website.
Well, I didn't write what's on your website. I'm going from what the statutes talk about. So the planning aspect is your two main functions as a planning commission when you wear that hat is to act on subdivisions and re-subdivisions and also create the town plan of conservation and development.
Right.
Those are your two big jobs there. Your job as a zoning commission is to create the zoning regulations, which establish lot size and setbacks and all that other stuff and encourage housing types and whatnot. And so that's where you see the opportunity housing thing and whatnot. So as a planning function, you can only look at it in terms of do these lots as proposed meet
The regs.
the regs?
Yeah.
So
I
they're
just want
not proposing an opportunity housing development. They're proposing a subdivision that complies with the regulations for the area.
So I just wanted to mention, in terms of the housing committee and the work that we're doing, I mean, our role is to facilitate the housing plan. So when you talk about, these opportunity housing, our role could be to bring in possible subsidies to incentivize owners to make the housing affordable. Because, these developments have to pencil out, and it costs money to make things affordable because you're not getting the level of rents. But if you have subsidies or, be it development subsidies or rental subsidies, then that could work out for these types of developments going on.
You're saying that's whose responsibility, the
Housing,
subsidies?
not us.
The
Oh,
housing committee,
okay.
the housing committee.
Not us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the work we're doing
Yeah.
in trying to implement the affordable
it.
housing
Okay.
plan.
Is that helpful, Charlie?
It is. I just have other questions I think go beyond TPZ in terms of how the town is preparing for the 10% requirement for affordable housing,
Right.
and also supporting the other housing shortfalls, which I don't understand what those are and how we're meeting them. Seems like we're getting all of these, we're getting the subdivision we just discussed, we got the one coming in January. If we don't put a plan together as a town, and I know there's some plans in place, but I don't know how we fit into that to make sure that whatever comes in front of us, we ask the questions of, hey, would you consider affordable housing, or whatever else we need to put a bug in somebody's ear for.
Right, but you do have to incentivize the affordable housing, because someone just can't come in and make affordable housing without any type of subsidy to offset the cost of what that is. And another goal is we don't want to necessarily segregate all affordable housing in one part of the town.
And no, neither do
Yeah.
I.
So the idea is to make sure it's, spread out throughout the town of Woodbridge.
Yeah.
So, in interest of time, I may try to wrap this discussion up a little bit, but to me, this is where it'd be interesting to have the housing committee present to us in our zoning function improvements to our zoning regulations that make housing, that they're trying to see develop easier, better, simpler. Some of those costs are real, including the costs of having public hearings, and moving through our processes can be barriers, and depending on the types of development. But I think our body is for the most part, we react to the things that are brought in front of us, and are often confined to what's in front of us and the decisions we're making. But great, if that's okay, I'd like to keep us moving, because I may need to pick up my son, who may be stranded.
You didn't have that problem last month with 3 hours and 43
No,
minutes.
I know. I know you didn't. So we've talked about our cleanup. Cannabis, anything we need to say on cannabis?
I don't know what you guys are doing, so
Just leave it on the agenda and bring
leave
it
it
back
on the
next
agenda.
time.
Okay.
We will get a double report of SCROG next time. Kathy, anything from the housing committee you'd like to report?
Yeah, there wasn't any, new actions because we didn't meet yet. Our meeting is Wednesday, so, my last report out was the last report out. So I'll have a lot to say in January, I'm sure.
Great. Chris, anything in your role as zoning enforcement officer?
I just wish people would like each other more.
That's a nice wish for the
like
holidays.
That's just a general thing everywhere.
Yeah.
You want to be more specific?
No, I think that people are under a lot of pressure, and it comes out in ways that may not be as kind as perhaps it could be.
A little kindness in our holiday season. That's Chris's wishes
And
as
all
zoning
year, and
enforcement.
all year long, yes.
And at Purim, too.
And at Forum, too.
And a quarter.
We have a couple of sets of meeting minutes, October 3rd and November 7th. Have folks had a chance to review them?
They're rather lengthy, so I just wanted to get them out there, and,
I do have some edits,
okay.
but if folks have had a chance or no?
Yeah, I have one edit too.
Okay, so want to start with October 3rd, motion to approve the October 3rd minutes. I'll move it.
Second.
Moved and second, discussion on the October 3rd minutes. Was that the one you had to?
No, it's not.
Okay, on the October 3rd, I think there was the 356 Rimmon Road where Kennedy moved not to schedule the public hearing. I thought we were all in favor of that. I'm listed as opposed.
I had you as opposed, but
I remember you as opposed to.
To not schedule a public hearing?
Yeah.
God, I don't even remember.
I remember you saying you wanted it, you thought we should have a public hearing for that one.
356 Rimmon.
Yeah.
Okay, then,
Could be wrong.
sure. Okay,
okay.
It's
It's okay.
recorded, we could go back and check.
Yeah.
well, you just watched it. You thought I was opposed?
No, which one are you talking about? That was in November?
That was
No, that was
October.
October.
No, October I was here. November I watched last night.
This is the October one.
Yeah. Oh, that's where you said, no, I was here for October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I was opposed.
My notes said you were. But hey, I don't care.
Judge
They're
RuPaul
re-
told me not to think out loud and just make an opinion and just get to it.
So I can switch you. I can make you, I can make you
Never
an
said that.
I was in,
Where's Warner Wolf? Let's
I
go
was
to
in
the videotape.
favor of not having a public hearing.
Okay.
And then in anytime sport, again, I was opposed, but this one I think was a copy and paste.
Yeah, that was a
Problem.
copy and paste. Thank you for catching that.
And I'd be careful of Yoni, I think, just, it wasn't to schedule, it, all that needs some editing.
Yeah, I need to edit
Yeah.
that out.
We were, I think it was a unanimous to approve the
Yeah.
anytime sport. So with those
Yeah, I'll fix it.
edits, all in favor of approving the October 3rd minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Actually, you weren't here, Chadi, so, is that right?
For
October 3rd.
No, I think I was. I've been.
No,
No, you weren't. You weren't listed here.
not yet.
Let's go to the videotape
Okay.
again.
I've been to 2 meetings so far. I think.
You've been to 2?
I think
Yeah.
so.
This one in November?
No,
No.
No.
this is third.
This is my third, I think. Yeah.
All right, then I'll add you in and,
Okay.
You were speaking so softly back there.
Yeah, it's the microphone.
okay.
Hey, I will move the minutes of November 7th. Do you have a second?
I'll do it wrong.
Do you want a second?
Sure.
Sure. Moved and seconded, meetings of November 7th. Kathy, did you have any edits?
Yeah, the application for the 9 Manilla Avenue for the public hearing, I opposed that, and I'm down as abstain.
I had that too. So you see that on page 7, Chris?
So you weren't an abstention, you were an opposed.
Correct.
I did note that you said
Right.
one of the impediments to creating housing
You
opportunities.
did.
Yeah, no, that was nice.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
And then I had just a couple of little typos that I'll give you. But other than that, with that main edit, any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Thank you. So those are approved. Any other business, other than I do want to, Chris, we would appreciate that note sent to the police commission to
Yeah,
ask
I
them.
will do that.
Thank you. Any other business? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you all.
Who seconded?